Welcome and thanks for tuning in to the Sean Inspires podcast. I am excited. This will be a phenomenal podcast interview today. I had the pleasure of meeting an amazing gentleman here in Atlanta, Georgia. And today we are going to talk about wellness from within with the subcategory Let's Heal the Mind. So today, guys, I have sitting in with me, his name is Cameron Uriah Jones. Cameron, welcome to the Sean Inspires podcast show. We are so glad to have you today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'll go ahead and just introduce you to the audience by reading your bio. Cameron Uriah Jones, born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia. I am currently, as he says, a graduate student working towards a doctoral degree in neuropsychology. He also has an associate's degree in paralegal studies, a bachelor's degree in legal studies and advocacy, and a master's of psychology with concentration in child and developmental psychology. He enjoys learning about neurosciences and brain functionality. It is his objective to help treat brain trauma, injuries, learning developmental disorders, mental illness, and cognitive disorders as well. In his spare time, he enjoys singing, writing, recording. He is also a playwright and screenwriter. He enjoys outside activities, spiritual meditation, creating positive experiences for family and friends. He also loves helping people find balance in their lives through understanding brain health and awareness of how to build a healthy mind. As he embarks upon his lifelong commitment of treating brain illness, it is his objective to help people find methods that address genetic, biological, and hereditary variables that affect brain functionality. That is an impressive bio, Cameron, but in your own way, we welcome you and would like for you to introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Well, yes, like Sean said, my name is Cameron Uriah Jones, and I am what you call all things brain. I enjoy just brain health, understanding how it affects our everyday life, what we need to do to live a healthy life, understanding brain functionality and how it contributes to our everyday life. And like Sean was explaining to you guys, I enjoy singing and writing and performing arts and all the different things that most people enjoy as well. And of course, family and loved ones, spending time with family and loved ones. So I'm glad to be here. That's pretty much me summed up.
Awesome. Well, we thank you so much for sharing all the things about you. And we are excited, and I applaud you already in advance for your doctoral candidacy and making it through the whole process. I know that neurology alone is a lot, but then coupled with neuropsychology, that's double. So high five to you for taking on such a great purpose and calling. So let's talk about that just a little bit. Have you always been interested in the way the brain works, healthy and unhealthy, and where did that interest or aspiration come from in regards to psychology?
I, in fact, was a brain damaged child. I had a severe brain injury as resulting from a fall from a bunk bed. I was a few months old, and it damaged most of my cranium, caused swelling in my brain. And my parents were told that I'll pretty much be a vegetable. And if I do make it, I would pretty much suffer extreme ADHD, learning developmental issues, and possibly, other issues that relates to developmental issues as far as, being able to pay attention in class, inability to learn, or in fact, autism of some sort because of the brain damage. But here I am today. So that was one of the main reasons why I decided to embark on this journey, because I was told that I would not be able to function as a normal human being again because of my brain injury.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. So actually, listening audience, we have a miracle on the line with us. And so that's great reason to celebrate and thank you for sharing your interest and how you became really invested in the work of studying the brain and wanting to know all the different mechanics and, as you mentioned, functionality of the brain. So as we talked about when you and I first, I want to continue the conversation that we had a week ago, and I want to journey at it in this dynamic. I know May, they entitled May, the month of mental illness. And I got so many notes and messages from people like, why are you not talking about mental illness? And I replied to some, and I do believe everything happens in its own divine time and divine season. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was not yet time for me to speak fully or to have someone on that I felt would be able to, in a relatable and transparent way, speak to the audience and give them powerful tools to bring them into a place of wellness and transformation when it comes to the mind and the brain. So today, let's talk about the healing dynamic and what are some of the things. You talked about dysfunctional trauma, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We talked about men specifically that had so much trauma and is still experiencing so much trauma that has not been dealt with. And for whatever reason, it has not been unpacked and treated properly. Why do you think some of that is?
Honestly, I've always tell people when it comes to brain development, it starts at home, right? The variables that affect a child's development starts with the parent or the caretaker, the educational institution, peer influence. And if the environment that a child is raised up in is not healthy, the brain begins to store that unhealthy stimuli, which is unhealthy information, and it stores it in the hippocampus. And when something happens, or the child or the teenager or even an adult encounters a situation that's hostile, the brain downloads all of that negative stimuli to create a reaction. It can be impulsive behavior, defiant behavior, disruptive behavior, abusive behavior, and a lot of times if we are raised in environments and our parents are not conscientious of what is actually being developed in our brains. And we grow up and they say, what is wrong with you? Why are you acting this way? I don't know. I just feel this way, right? And there's something associated with there. There's a possible disorder, trauma, cognitive disorders, which there is therapy for that. But most times, personality disorders is what we're seeing play out in a lot of people that we encounter in our everyday lives, in our relationships, in our careers, in our friendships. A lot of undiagnosed personality disorders is what we're seeing today.
And I love the way that you took it and you broke it down into categories. And I also just gained some amazing insight from what you shared, that the brain has the ability to store and house traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so.
That's powerful in itself, being that memory download, if I'm hearing correctly, as you're sharing with us, that memory download can possibly later become a part of a habit or a lifestyle habit that is not the healthiest. Is that correct?
Correct, very much so, which we call it personality disorder. We hear people say you're narcissistic or you're paranoid or borderline personality disorder, schizo personality disorders. You have all of these different variations of what is considered a personality disorder, which is unhealthy thinking, functioning, and behavior issues. So typically, if you see these things play out in a child early in life, typically it's going to transition into their adult life if it goes undiagnosed or untreated.
So would you say, with that being said, would you say what we are seeing such a massive uprising and surfacing of so many people having mental illness or mental disorders? I'm 45, and maybe I was thinking back some time ago as a kid, I don't remember seeing so many people have mental disorders, but we're at a space now that it's like at alarming rates. Where I was in a conversation while visiting in New Orleans, and I was out having dinner and had it with some professionals, and three of those individuals are very successful people in what they do. And all three of them expressed that during the time of COVID, that they all realized they needed some mental health. They needed a therapist. They needed a coach because so many things that they had, as you mentioned, had not dealt with in the past. And now, as successful professionals in their own right, they found all of these different things happening to them and how they were reacting to things that was going on. And so now we're in the space of here it is. How do we deal with it? And what is the one of the healthiest ways to help people come to terms with it? Because so many people are locked in fear, Cameron. So what would be one healthy step for those individuals, even listening, that have been privately saying, yes, I have a great career, I have a loving family, but I keep falling in this bad pattern of, I don't know what those patterns may be, but they found that it's unhealthy, right? What is the first step to becoming whole and well again so that they could avoid those missteps and patterns?
Seeking professional advice, honestly, and reaching out to your mental health providers in your local area. There's tons of mental health information available. Getting mental health information or going to see a therapist for proper diagnosis is not something that should be shunned. It's something that should be embraced, especially in the urban community where a lot of times we just don't know. We're told to pray about it and begin to move on, right? But however, what I've seen is that when it comes to replacing the negative information, right, with positive information, you ever heard that saying, you are what you think, right? Whatever a man thinketh, so is he, right? You hear that often in our homes, and that's very much true. But you put in, if there's negative, so much negative thinking, so much negative variables that's always impacting your ability to function. Eventually, if you don't begin to replace that behavior or that information with positive information, taking a walk, going for a swim, eating healthy, speaking words of affirmation into your mind, doing something fun, adventurous. Typically, outdoor activities are great for leveling the mind. Green, seeing things green in mental health helps. Have you ever noticed when you're seeing grass and green, it just calms you? Being outside is probably one of the very important things. If there's no medication, there's no diagnosis, get outside, begin to explore the world around you. And that, those are some of the things I do. But the key thing is getting diagnosed, seeing your mental health professionals to ensure that you are not, in fact, suffering from some apparent personality disorder, in fact, some developmental disorder, which can definitely throw your life off.
Absolutely. But as you were giving those tools and empowering the listening audience to walk forward and to take the healthy steps, I was hearing color therapy.
Yes, color
and
therapy.
that's what I heard. I don't know if that's a real thing, but
it is a real thing. It is definitely a real thing. Green, seeing things green, definitely. Being outside in nature, especially for developmental disorders, help calm impulsive behavior or even inattentiveness. It helps calm the brain. So yes, color therapy is a real thing.
Wow, amazing. And so you talked about attentiveness. So I work as a life coach, and I have a few clients that some of them specifically when they first joined in the journey of transformation. One of the main things, as you mentioned, attentiveness. And I found the pattern that so many of them were saying, well, the ability to focus, that my focus is off. And how do I get my mind to focus? So for individuals that have difficulty, that are easily distracted, that their attention span is 0 to almost 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say would help? What are some healthy practices in regards to neural practices that they could implement that would help them improve over time? Because again, so many people want healing and they don't realize it's a process. So over time, what is a healthy practice for them to possibly implement to harness their focus?
A lot of times it's basically what you eat. A lot of times, if you don't have a lot of proper nutrients, the brain needs omega fatty acids, which helps with working memory and inattentiveness. inattentiveness. You know, we eat fish and different things, different healthy eating habits are critical to brain health. You know, if there's no diagnosis, typically when someone is struggling with focus or inattentiveness or irritation, frustration, and never been diagnosed or have never seen a mental health professional to help them understand what is going on with me, ADHD is probably one of the main most common disorders that goes undiagnosed in the urban community or in adults, right? Typically it's diagnosed in children, but it does happen more often in adults who've never been diagnosed. And you need to see a mental health professional get an MRI done, which is neuroimaging, to see if in fact there is possible genetic traits of ADHD in your bloodline, or you're possibly an ADHD patient but never knew it. And it doesn't make you unfunctional. It just means that there are specific things like inattentiveness or inability to focus that are associated with ADHD. So, you know, it's important to get, you know, go get some mental professional help in terms of neuroimaging to ensure that that's not the case.
Wow. And as you were mentioning, I also was hearing hereditary. So is it possible that some of the illnesses, when we talk about mental illness or mental trauma, outside of experiences that the trauma may be, some of these things, is it possible that it could be hereditary and the individual just have never taken time to find out what that is like in their lineup? Is that correct?
Very much so. ADHD is one of those developmental disorders that can be very genetic. Personality disorders can be environmental, which is hereditary, but can have some genetic reference to it as well. There's always ongoing studies when it comes to genetic and mental health, and we are creating different methods to help quickly diagnose ADHD and developmental disorders in children and adults. So a lot of times, and typically ADHD comes from the father, and most men are diagnosed with ADHD. Women too, but majority are men who have the genetic gene of ADHD. Oh yeah, it can be very hereditary, and it can be genetic as well.
Wow, that's powerful insight. I never thought that it could possibly be hereditary. If there's a individual in the family that have had not just trauma but also mental things from a long time, and maybe it'll transfer into the next family member. That is very, very shocking information, and that I had never even known or even considered in my own evaluation of connecting with family and seeing what that possibly could look like. So everyone listening, this is key. Take a look at your community, your family community, and
Yes.
do some assessments. Just as Cameron is sharing with us today, do some assessments. And you very well may be working through something that is not even your fault, right? And so know that this is a healing space, that this is a place that is sacred. And this is why Cameron is here with us today. And this is why I wanted to bring someone on who I know who could speak to the heart of the issues of what we are facing, not just in America, but all over the world.
Yes.
And so with that being said, you mentioned a lot of things. We talked about color therapy. We talked about diet. We know that, as you said, in the urban community, when we look at demographics in certain neighborhoods, there are certain type of grocery stores in certain neighborhoods. There are certain type of healthy grocery stores in certain neighborhoods. So for those that are listening, this may be an eye-opening first step tool to your healing. Is you may have to shift, as Cameron is saying, shift some of your diet.
Yes.
As you consult with your physician, right, Cameron?
Yes, very much so.
And so at that point, I think too, you are absolutely correct in saying that? And if we do a little study, if we say, hey, well, I noticed that after I ate the mac and cheese, I got really, really sluggish. Well, think about it. It's carbs, it's cheese, it's milk, it's all those things that slow down your ability to be attentive, right? That slow down your ability to be aware and conscious of all things at an accelerated rate as you should function. Nothing wrong with eating those things in its proper time, but over consuming in our community, as we have seen over a length of time, has become very unhealthy.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So what would be, we mentioned going to getting professional help. We changed the diet. We now connect and engage with nature. And now I want to talk a little bit about meditation, because oftentimes people do not realize how powerful meditation is in your daily life and how it itself can help heal you of some physical and most times emotional ailments that we're experiencing. So, Cameron, if you could share from your background and your expertise, as you shared even in your bio, that you enjoy meditation. If you could share with the listening audience, what are some healthy meditation practices that they could add to their lifestyle?
In therapy, we attribute a lot of the development now in therapy and in neurosciences to divinity, right? A higher power. Because of the detailed development of the human being, right? And in me knowing that, even in my studies, that because of we're so well put together and developed, that science now contributes the human development to divinity, helps me understand how connecting with a higher power or clearing out the clutter is what I like to do. Turn my brain off and just sit sometime in quietness, not to even think, try not to think about anything. Probably throw some classical music on. There's such thing as musical therapy. It does work for calming. And just clear out the clutter. Clear out the negative thinking. Just sit and close your eyes and just let all that negative energy just move from your thinking, because it is about your thinking. Remember, I said earlier, whatever a person thinketh about themselves, so is he. Typically, if you think, it's going to create an action. That's how the brain works. So taking time out of your daily life to just not do anything and just sit in a calm place is one of the benefits that I do as someone who meditates.
Wow, even as you were talking and you said clearing out the clutter.
Yes.
That is important, because sometimes we have so much going on. We're going from one activity to the next activity, or to one conversation to another conversation. And now with so many people working virtually, their calendars for Zoom meetings are back to back to back to back to back. Right.
Yes.
And it's like monstrous in trying to juggle all of that, which also affects your health. That if you don't have any downtime to sit and meditate, then you really become unhealthy. So I love how you say, let's clear out the clutter. So for the listening audience, that's your homework. Normally, as a coach, I give homework to my clients. And so the listening audience today, Cameron and I, we want to empower you and charge you with clearing out the clutter. And so, Cameron, would you say there is a certain amount of time that a person should spend in meditation?
We're all very busy people, and it doesn't take much to clear out the clutter. Sometimes it can take a minute to just sit up for 60 seconds, just step away. I like to do 5 to 10, to give myself really time to just not do anything, turn off everything, turn off social media, turn it off, right? It's, like a computer, you have to turn it off or it's going to heat up. It's going to eventually, this malfunction is going to go haywire, right? Or we call it having a nervous breakdown. And when you're not clearing out the clutter and there's so much information going through your brain, because the brain is going to do what you need it to do, and that's process information. But information overload will happen eventually because you're cluttered. Your brain is trying to figure out where to put this information, where to store this information, what type of reaction should you be doing if this happens. And there's so much going on at one time. If you don't break and put a stop to all of that, you're going to have information overload, which typically can lead to a nervous breakdown. Clear out the clutter. Step away from it. Give yourself that much. Give you that much. Please give yourself that much an opportunity to just clear out the clutter. And whatever that clutter is, it can be a relationship, it can be work, it can be social interactions with friends and family. It can be sometimes overthinking. Stop and clear out the clutter.
Wow, that's amazing. I was actually, as I always close my show, I normally have every guest leave a word of empowerment or inspiration as we are getting ready to wrap the segment. But you just did it, so I don't even have to ask you to give a word of encouragement or inspiration because you flowed right in it, and that's one of the most amazing things about the guests on the show. There's normally such a great synergy that they can pick right up and just know exactly where to go and where to land and be such a blessing to the listening audience. Cameron, if you could share with the listening audience how they may partner with you and follow you as you are on this journey and doing great work to bring healing to the realm of the mind, the realm of the soul.
Well, I don't have any social media set up for that particular, but you can follow me on Facebook at Cameron Jones. Follow me on Facebook on Cameron Jones. Send me a message if this helped you. I'm not hard to find. I'm the guy with the cool white outfit on with the glasses and the nice hat with the ATL hat on there. Follow me on social Facebook and message me and we, I'll send you some words of empowerment, some mental health resources, and find out who is your mental professional in your area. And the key thing is being informed and knowing what steps to take to put you on the right path to mental health freedom. And yeah.
Absolutely amazing. We so appreciate you. We value your time, your knowledge, your spirit, energy, and power. And so congratulations again for your doctoral degree in neuropsychology. You are getting ready to shake the world as you have already done with us today on the Sean Inspires show. So thank you again. Everyone who's listening, do download and share the Sean Inspires podcast with your community. You can find me on Spotify, Spriker, iHeart, and a host of other podcast outlets. And as always, stay strong and stay inspired. Until next time, bye now.
Bye-bye.